What is up, guys? We're here at Natural Bridge Caverns. We're gonna go into some caves. I'm gonna take y'all with me. You already know. Let's get it. Alright, guys, the tour has started.
Folks, welcome once again to the Bear Pit. You're 45 feet below the natural bridge. Now, the reason why we call this room the Bear Pit is because we found an 8,000-year-old black bear jawbone and a 5,000-year-old black bear leg bone inside of this room. If you'd like to see those bones, they're going to be in the visitor center encased in glass. I highly recommend going to see those after the tour. Also inside of here, we have the original entrance to Discovery Crawlway. Now, Discovery Crawlway is 120 feet long, and it leads to 2 miles of cavern, and is in fact where our discoverers had to crawl through to get to that 2 miles of cavern. Now, luckily for us, we're not going to be crawling through there today. We're actually going to be going down through those humidity doors right over there. Those humidity doors just keep the natural state in which our formations like to grow in. Is anybody from Houston?
Yeah.
Welcome home. If y'all look back behind me, you're going to see the raccoon rooms. Now, the raccoon rooms gets its name because back in 1963, during our development period, there was actually a family of raccoons living inside of there. Now, luckily for us, those family of raccoons will not be joining us today on tour because that was about 60 years ago. Does anybody have any questions for me?
That's where they crawl in. Holy is that big?
We're going to keep continuing down past those humidity doors. As we're walking down, please remember these trails are going to be steep and wet, so please take small, slow steps and use the handrails at all times. Right this way, please.
It's steep.
Despacito.
Huh?
You look around right over here, please.
Take a pic.
Alrighty, y'all, welcome to St. Mary's Hallway. St. Mary's Hallway is 90 feet below the natural bridge, and it's just a hallway into the next room we're going to on tour today. Now, St. Mary's Hallway was named after the school in which our discoverers went to. They went to St. Mary's University in San Antonio. As we're walking through, please remember these trails are steep and wet, so please take small, slow steps. And there are going to be no handrails inside of St. Mary's Hallway, so please be cautious of the lack of handrails. Do I have any questions before we continue on today? Alright, folks, right this way.
Aquí no me agarraste nada. Watch your head. Watch your head. What the? You see that? Yeah.
Dale, porque se nos pierde. Dale, dale. No, le digo a tu padre que se queda parado. No, dale ya, sí, nomás es para caminar. Sí.
It's actually not even hot in here.
As you're coming down, you're going to notice the exit to Discovery Crawlway. Once again, Discovery Crawlway is 120 feet long, and it leads to 2 miles of cavern. Folks, as y'all are coming in, please feel free to take a seat at any of the benches around the room. You can even sit at this rock wall here in front of me. Y'all wouldn't mind actually sitting at these 2 benches right over there for me, please. Folks, as y'all are coming down, you're going to notice the exit to Discovery Crawlway. Once again, Discovery Crawlway is 120 feet long, and it leads to 2 miles of cavern. Feel free to take a seat at any of the benches around the room. You can even sit at this rock wall here in front of me.
Siéntate allá. ¿Dónde vas?
Tú aquí, mira. Ay, es que te... Ay.
Got another bench right over here. Almost on the line. Got some more space on this rock wall too. You can sit at that rock wall. How's everyone doing so far?
Good.
That's good. Welcome to Plutos Anterior. You're 108 feet below the natural bridge. Now, as y'all are coming down, you saw the exit to Discovery Crawlway. That is, in fact, where our discoverers came out of to get to the room that we're standing in today. Once again, it's Plutos Anterior, 108 feet below the natural bridge. Now, when they got out of here, they started to shine their lights all around the room and noticed all of the formations inside of here. When they saw these formations, they thought it looked a lot like the underworld, and so they named it Plutos' Anteroom. Does anybody know who Plutos is?
Like the Roman god of the underworld.
Correct. He's the Roman god of the underworld. Now, do you know what anteroom means? You want to take a guess? Okay. Anteroom. Now, anteroom means a smaller room before bigger rooms. It's actually one of the smallest rooms that we're going to see on tour today. Even though it's the smallest room, it actually houses most of our formations. We have two different types. We have dripstones formed by the dripping of water and flowstones formed by the flowing of water underneath those formations. Over there in that lit up area is actually most of our dripstones. The ones that we see hanging tightly to the ceiling are called stalactites. And those stalactites will grow downwards. Those stalactites right over here, they're going to go downward. And then we have another type of stalactite right over here. Those are called soda straw stalactites. These soda straw stalactites are actually hollow in the middle, just like a soda straw. So in theory, we could drink through them. Now, if we were to drink through them, it's going to taste a lot like a third-degree felony. The ones that you see growing on the bottom are called stalagmites. And these stalagmites might reach the ceiling one day. Now, they're going to grow upward. And the one back here is called a column. So that column is when it reaches the top of the roof and the bottom of the floor. And the column that we see over there is actually going to be one of the smallest columns inside of our cavern system. So those are all of our dripstones. What some of our flowstone include, our basic flowstone right over here, formed by the flowing of water underneath it. We also have our cave ribbon right over here. Now that cave ribbon kind of looks like somebody took a pinch out of the walls. And when that cave ribbon becomes heavy enough, it actually starts to hang off the wall and create a different type of formation. If y'all look back this way, you can see what we call cave curtains. This cave curtain is when it hangs off the wall, just like the curtains we have at home. Below that is a cave drapery, and when that cave drapery hangs off the wall and touches the bottom of the floor all at the same time. So that's the flowstone's version of a column. Now y'all may be wondering how all these formations actually form. They all form the same way, even though they all look different. They form by rainwater coming in through the soil layer, picking up CO2 from dead decaying plants and animals, or carbon dioxide, and they form a weak carbonic acid. Now this weak carbonic acid we can actually find in the sodas that we drink, but it is so corrosive enough to actually dissolve any mineral from the limestone. So when that carbonic acid moves through the soil layer and into the limestone layer, it starts to dissolve that mineral from the limestone called calcite. So that water, CO2, and calcite will mix, move through the limestone layer and into the cavern atmosphere. Once in the cavern atmosphere, that CO2 is released. And that water and calcite will either drip or flow onto our formations, where that calcite will begin to crystallize on top of them, growing our formations 1 cubic inch every 100 years. Or you can imagine your ice cube maker at home making 1 ice cube every century. Now my flashlight's about 6 inches in length. So it would take 600 years to grow a flashlight. Do I have any other questions, or any questions at all? If y'all look above me, you're going to see this black stuff on top of the ceiling. That is a bat roost. Now bats are mammals just like us, so they have oils on their skin, and the oils on their skin will begin to damage and waterproof that area, so nothing can grow there any longer. That's effectively a dead zone. Now that bat roost can date back to 5,000 years, if not longer. Now with bats inside of the room, we have to have what's called bat guano. Back over here on that basic flowstone is that bat guano. And that bat guano is about 5,000 years old. We'll talk a little bit more about bat guano once we get to another room, where it becomes much larger and much older as well. Do I have any questions before we leave this room? All right, folks, you're going to meet you right down there. Please don't go again on the right this way, please. Take a few steps back. Remember to social distance from anybody we didn't come with. I'm going to ask that you give them their 6 feet, and I'm going to ask that you give them my 6 feet as well, just as a safety precaution. We are trying to make sure we're all social distancing here at Natural Bridge Caverns. But with that being said, we're about to go into our next room. We're going to be going down the switchbacks to get to it. The switchbacks are going to be a 72-foot descent into the next room. As we are going down, please remember these trails are steep and wet, so please take small, slow steps and use the handrails at all times. There are going to be some narrow sections, so you're going to want to take wide turns. For my taller folks, please watch your heads. There's going to be some low-bearing ceilings. Do I have any questions before we leave? Alrighty, folks, right this way.
Watch your head, watch your head. Ow. That looks badass. No cap, bro. Look at this. Look at down there. Look at the water.
Again, I got some benches inside of here. Go and take a seat.
I'm holding, blocking the camera. Blocking the camera.
Está fresco, pero sería
All right, folks, welcome to Sherwood Park. We're currently standing 180 feet below the natural bridge at the deepest point that we're going to touch with our feet today on tour. If y'all look back to here, you can start to see the beautiful Sherwood Forest inside of here, and all the formations that make it look like there's an underground forest growing in this room. Now, if you look over here at the formation closest to the right of the wall, those are looking a lot like tree tops. And the ones in the middle section looking a lot like tree trunks growing up to create this beautiful tree canopy inside of this room. So it really does look like there's an underground forest growing with us inside of here. Now we do have a couple different formations. We have our stalagmites, or different types of stalagmites. They're called Rimstone stalagmites. Now these Rimstone stalagmites are a little bit more slender than the last ones that we saw, and they actually form by the slow, steady drip of water over time. So those are Rimstone stalagmites. But as y'all are coming down, you probably notice this very large formation. That is called the totem pole. The totem pole is 32 feet high and it's 8 inches in diameter, making it the second largest column inside of our cavern system. Once again, we're sitting at the deepest point, 180 feet below the natural bridge, Sherwood Forest. But does anybody know where the name Sherwood Forest comes from? What famous tale? Very good, Robin Hood. Good job. That's what the tale, Robin Hood. Now, one of our discoverers was an English literature major, so you're going to see a lot of English literature references today on Forest, one of them being Sherwood Forest. So that's how we get the name for that, and that's how we get the name for this room. But y'all may be wondering how this cavern system actually formed. Now, this cavern system started forming about 120 to 140 million years ago. About 120 to 140 million years ago, Texas was covered by a warm, shallow sea. And this warm, shallow sea had plants and animals living inside of it, and eventually these plants and animals would die, and when they died, they sank to the bottom and started compacting in sedimentary layers of limestone. Now we can see these sedimentary layers of limestone all around us. This limestone layer is called the Glen Rose limestone. It's about 120 to 140 million years old. But we're going to flash forward about 20 million years ago. About 20 million years ago, there was seismic activity in the state of Texas. Does anybody know what seismic activity means? Earthquake. So, these earthquakes created joints and faults inside the ground, and we can actually see a joint running above our heads today. That big old crack that you see inside the ground at the top of the roof is a joint. And that joint started to create other cracks. And so those cracks allowed water to seep through and carve out the cavern system in which we are standing in today. So at one point in time, this whole cavern system was in fact filled with water. Until eventually that water receded back into our aquifers where it is today. And when that happened, air started to come through those same cracks. And when that air came in here, it started to allow our formations to grow. So that's how we get this amazing cavern system. Does anybody have any questions for me?
She wants to know if you're going to see bats.
So we do occasionally see bats. We don't have any bat colony living inside of here any longer, but I have seen a couple of bats that come in every now and then. Any other questions?
Are there any other animals that don't see?
Snakes, frogs, crickets.
Anything might fall in.
Yeah, raccoons, armadillos. It's all about what you see. We've only seen a snake in here a couple of times. I've caught a frog. There's a lot of cave crickets in the creek. These are different adaptations than the regular crickets that you see at the top. They have more antennas. They're also completely blind. And they don't make any noise because they don't want to be eaten by any of the other crickets. Yep. Because once you get down this far, there's not a big food source for them, so they'll start eating each other. Any other questions? Alrighty, folks, y'all are going to meet me right over here at the bridge.
You're
Alrighty, folks, behind me is what we call Purgatory Creek. Purgatory Creek is the deepest point inside of our cavern system at 211 feet below the natural bridge. And it is in fact where our discoverers had to walk through. And while they were walking through there, they figured out that the mud inside of there was about 4 to 5 feet thick, so it's very hard to move through. Now luckily for us, we're not going to be walking through there, we're going to be walking across it on Purgatory Bridge. Purgatory Bridge is 152 feet long. It was poured in one continuous slab of concrete to prevent against any cracks inside of it. Now this is going to be completely safe to walk across, but as we are walking across, please keep all personal belongings on you, because if they fall in, chances are I can't get them back for you. Also, please remember to use the handrails as we're walking across, because these trails are going to become steep and wet. Does anybody have any questions for me before we continue on? Alrighty folks, right this way.
Drop your phone down there? I got a new one. This is actually pretty cool.
As you're coming up this ramp over here, please remember these trails are steep and wet, so please take multiple steps and use the handrails at all times. We'll let catch it.
Yeah. Can't see anything.
You gonna wait right here for me?
It just stopped recording.
Alrighty, y'all, we're now standing in our second largest room that we're going to see on tour today. It's called Castle of the White Giants. And the dimensions of this room are 50 feet high, 50 feet wide, and 250 feet in length. Once again, making this the second largest room inside of our cavern system. We're also 150 feet below the natural bridge, so we are slowly starting our hike up, known as the fun part. Now, you may not be able to see this room completely, but if you look back this way, you're going to start to see the light turn on.
Yeah.
If y'all look over here, you're going to see what we call Rimstone Pools. Now, Rimstone Pools are a type of flowstone, and they form when water drips into one pool, and that pool fills up, and that pool starts to overflow into these other pools, and it'll keep on flowing and flowing and flowing until eventually it reaches the end. And so that's how we get these Rimstone Pools. They look a lot like noodles, so we all call them cave noodles. It's a great way to remember Rimstone Pools. We're also going to talk about why we get the name Castle of the White Giants for this room, but does anybody have any questions before we proceed on? Alrighty folks, right this way.
The watchtower.
Once again, welcome to Castle of the White Giant. If y'all look around the room, you're going to see these three very large formations. Now, these three large formations that you see are actually the largest inside of our cavern system. And so since they're in here, we call it Castle of the White Giant. Now, that first one that you see on the very far left is called the Watchtower. The Watchtower is 50 feet high, and it's 8 feet in diameter, making it the largest column inside of our cavern system. To the right of that is the King's Throne, to the right of that is the Mount of the Landlord, and the Mount of the Landlord gets its name because of all the holes inside of it. Now, those holes reminded our discoverers a lot like an apartment complex, so they thought that was the apartment complex. And they also saw this guy standing outside on the left-hand side in the middle section, and they thought he was the landlord coming out to collect his money from his tenant. So they called it Mount of the Landlord. To the right of that is the King's Throne, and the king's living pretty luxuriously with an armrest on both sides, and even a pedestal where he can rest his feet. Now, what would a king be if he wasn't showing off his luxury inside of this room? If y'all look back at the King's Throne and up to the right-hand side, you're going to see what we call cave chandeliers. Now, these cave chandeliers kind of spruce the room up a little bit, but they actually form when a bunch of cave curtains come together in that one section and form these magnificent cave chandeliers. If we look back at the Mount of the Landlord and to the left-hand side of the ceiling, you're going to see what we call America's favorite breakfast item. Once again, it's going to be at the Mount of the Landlord on the left-hand side of the ceiling. Does anybody want to guess what the name of that formation actually is? One more time? Nope. Any other guesses? It's a breakfast item. It's a breakfast item, type of meat.
Bacon.
Anybody want to guess the name of it?
Bacon.
Very good, it's cave bacon. Now that cave bacon gets its coloration through what we call humic acid. And humic acid comes from dead decaying plants and animals inside of the ground. And that humic acid can tell us a lot about what that environment was like back in that time period. If we see more of a red streak in plastic, it tells us that it was a hotter environment because it will speed up the decomposition process inside of the ground. So that's how we get cave bacon. But if y'all look behind me, you're going to start to see the lights in Grendels Canyon turn on. Grendels Canyon is the second deepest point inside of our cavern system at 207 feet below the natural bridge. And that is, in fact, where our discoverers had to walk through to get to the next room we're going to on tour today. While they were walking through, they described it as only a place a monster could live, so they named it Grendels Canyon. But does anybody know where the name Grendel comes from? What famous story?
Grendel and Grendel? Beowulf?
Yes, sir. It comes from the story Epic Beowulf. Once again, one of our discoverers was an English literature major, so we're going to see. So that's going to be one of the English literature references that we see.
Yeah, I did it.
Now, luckily for us, we're not going to be walking through there. We're actually going to be walking up 35 steps in the Emerald Lake Passageway. Now, please feel free to count these 35 steps. I bet you I'm right on the money at 35. Any questions before we leave? Alrighty, folks, y'all are going to follow me right this way to Emerald Lake Passageway.
Grendel Canyon, 207 feet. Thing is deep. This rock. You actually counted? Yeah. How many? 35.
That's right.
city.
Remember social distance from everybody in helmet, 6 feet. Alrighty, y'all. Welcome to Emerald Lake Passageway, 135 feet below the natural bridge. If you look around, you're going to see this beautiful emerald lake inside of here. And the water gets its emerald color from the light refraction inside of it. So it is so that light refraction is artificial because all of our water is in fact crystal clear. It's all naturally purified through the limestone layer, so it is technically safe to drink. Once again, all that emerald tint or that emerald coloration inside of the water comes from the light refraction. Now, Emerald Lake Passageway is just a natural passageway into the next room we're going to today on tour. It was actually carved out by an ancient river that used to flow through here. Does anybody have any questions for me? We're going to take a few minutes for everybody to get some pictures in, and then we'll move on. Is everyone ready to continue?
Yeah.
Alright, folks, y'all are going to follow me down this way into our next room.
No.
Muy bien la carne, mira. A ver, saliendo con una mujer así, es que me tienen que resolver. Creo que valga la pena venir,
No estaba dispuesta a pagar.
Sí, sí. ¿Ah? Oh, no. Sí. What did you say, Maxi? Yeah.
Alright, folks, if you look over here into this dark abyss, you're going to see the exit to Grendels Canyon at its deepest point at 207 feet below the natural bridge. In just a second, I'm going to turn the lights on. In 3, 2, 1. Once again, at its deepest point, it's 207 feet below the natural bridge, making it the second deepest point inside of our cavern system. And that is, in fact, where our discoverers had to walk through to get to the room that we're standing in today.
Esa es la salida del agujero aquel. El que estaba ahí.
Now, they slowly had to start their ascent upwards, and we're slowly also going to start our ascent upward if y'all want to follow me up this way. Any of the benches around the room. We're going to be in here for just a few minutes. Have another bench over here if anybody needs some more space.
Actually, second house.
Have another open bench over here.
I'll fit in there.
Alrighty, y'all, we're standing in the largest room that we're going to see on tour today, and the largest room inside of our cavern system. It's called the Hall of the Mountain King. Now we're actually at the bottom of the Hall of the Mountain King, and the dimensions of this room are 100 feet high, 100 feet wide, and 350 feet in length. This is also the largest showroom in the state of Texas. Back there is where our discoverers came out to find this room. Now when they got inside of here, they noticed how different it looked from the other rooms we've been going through today on tour. Y'all also may have noticed how different it looks. This room formed differently from our other rooms, and it formed from a process called collapse remodification. Does anybody know what collapse remodification means? Alright. I'm going to tell you all about it. Collapse remodification means that at one point in time, there were intersecting joints inside of the ceiling, and those intersecting joints caused it to be weak, where it initially just wanted to collapse in on itself. Now, if y'all remember, there was water inside of here, and of course that water buoyancy helps keep the ceiling up and stable, until eventually it started receding back into our aquifers, and then the collapse remodification process began. It began to collapse section by section, layer by layer, and piece by piece, until eventually we reached a stable point where we're at today. Now, y'all may be wondering how we know we're at a stable point. If y'all look back this way, you're going to see all the beautiful formations inside of here, and how large they are. Now, these formations did not grow this big and this large. They had rocks or boulders like these you see all around us falling on top of them. These boulders that we see are called breakdown. They all used to be a part of the roof at one point in time until they all fell down. And when they fell down, in order to make these formations, broken. And so they would basically demolish any of that formation right until eventually it reached a stable point, once again where we are today, until they could begin to flourish and flop and get this huge. Another good way to tell that now we're at a stable point is I would not be walking through here if there were big old boulders falling from the ceiling. Does anybody have any questions for me?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Did any of the people that were like exploring this place die while they were doing it?
Nope. 2 of them are still alive today. So Orion Knox is 77 years old and he still explores caves.
Wow.
If you ask me about the other guy, I don't know what happened here. And the other 2, we don't know what happened when.
What happened when it rained outside?
What happened?
Close.
So when it rains, we don't close. We still open, and we can hear the water coming in through the ground. It's a great experience. It starts to fill everything up, and if we get enough rain, we go into what we call aquifer tours. And aquifer tours are where the aquifer inside of here starts to fill up so high that it closes off some rooms because of how high it gets. Like we have a lake inside of here, and so we use a bypass, like a hallway, to get into these other rooms, and we talk a bit more about the aquifer, and we show off the windows inside of there. It's a cool experience. If any of y'all have the chance to come out here during an aquifer tour, highly recommend it. Any other questions?
They film any film on here? Any movie?
So we haven't filmed any movie. What I know, we haven't filmed any movies. At the end of the tour, I can confirm about that. They might have filmed a movie, but I can find that out after the end of the tour for you. Any other questions? Alrighty, folks, we're about to head up to the top of the Hall of the Mountain King. As we're heading up, we're going to see an interesting and cool formation. It's called the fried egg formation. Fried egg formations only form in very large rooms like this when water falls from a very high point in the ceiling very fast, and the velocity of that fall causes the calcite to be deposited in the middle of it, making it look yellow like the yolk of the egg, and the water all the way around it making it look white like the whites of the egg. And so we get a fried egg formation. Does anybody have any questions before we leave? Alright folks, y'all are going to meet me right over here at this trail. I'm going to give the trail warning, and then we'll start walking up. Alright folks, this is going to be the most strenuous part of our tour. So if anybody needs help at any point in time, please feel free to ask me. I'll be happy to help you. And if anybody has any questions at any point in time, please feel free to ask me. I'll be happy to answer. But as we're walking up, please remember these trails are steep and wet, so please take small, slow steps and use the handrails at all times. Is everyone ready to continue on? Outstanding. Y'all are going to follow me right this way.
Weird is here.
Yeah.
The temperature is not bad, but you know, I'm getting out of nowhere.
Yeah. Pigs, sharp pigs.
Coming up on everybody's left-hand side is going to be that Friday formation. Halfway there. Doing all right? You're halfway there. Yeah.
It's hard to breathe in here with these nets.
Yeah.
And you can pull it down.
Are you okay?
¿Te puedes caminar o no?
Te cargamos.
Let's take a breather.
You got it. We'll wait here for just a minute. Everybody take a break, get a breather in.
Mira cómo está aquí. Igual nosotros le hubieran puesto una campanilla y una de arriba, una luz así. ¿No? A ver, ahí está. Abajo de la tierra. You won't tell me which is working each other up.
No.
Is that truck? Yeah.
Valley of the Fallen Lords.
Bueno, allá ya vimos porque ya venían.
Alrighty, folks, congratulations. Y'all made it to the top of the halls of Mountain King. As y'all are coming up, you're going to notice the Valley of the Fallen Lords. Inside the Valley of the Fallen Lords, you're also going to notice that blinking light. Now, that blinking light just means that there's a mile and a half more of cavern. That's also where the Discovery Adventure Tour begins. If anybody has any questions about that tour, please feel free to ask me after this one. But also back there in May of 2019, we found our largest discovery since we opened. We found 1,500 more feet of cavern. If you'd like to watch when that exploration went down, you can watch it on YouTube or any of our social media websites at Facebook or Instagram. The owner, Brad Weiss, went down there, and also one of the original discoverers went down there. His name was Florian Knox. He's 77 years old and still exploring caves. If y'all look at the top of the ceiling, you're going to notice what we call a bat roof once again. That bat roof was one of the largest bat roofs inside of our cavern system, probably housing a great amount of bats. Now we theorize our bats started to leave about 5,000 years ago when that sinkhole roof collapsed. We also theorize they moved 1.5 miles down the road, 3 ranches over to the Bracken Bat Cave. And the Bracken Bat Cave has one of the largest collections of mammals living inside of it, and also one of the largest Mexican free-tailed bat populations in the state of Texas, with around 10 to 15 million Mexican free-tailed bats living inside of it. Now, once again, with bats inside of the room, we have to have what we call bat guano. All that black stuff that you saw as you were coming up, it's called bat guano. It's about 15,000 years old. Does anybody know what bat guano is? Very good, it's bat food. 15,000-year-old bat food. If you were to touch it, it's going to feel like how it did 15,000 years ago. Please don't touch it though. It just doesn't have the smell. At the top, we also have our observation deck right over there. That observation deck is a great place to take some pictures, look off up to see the magnitude of this room as well. If anybody has any questions, I'll be right over here to answer them. But this is also going to be the end of our tour.
Alright guys, the tour is finally over. It was about like an hour. So, got some good clips. Peace.